There's a drink that's been around for over 2,000 years, but we seem to be hearing more about it now than ever before. I'm talking about kombucha, and it happens to be all the rage right now. The fermented drink is made with bacteria, yeast, tea, and sugar. The bubbly beverage is being hailed for its health benefits, but is it really all that it's cracked up to be? Joining me at the table to dish on the new beverage of choice for many in our community is Hannah Smith, Eastern Region Clinical Nutrition Manager for Rochester Regional Health. And she is joined by three Rochester kombucha brewers, Jesse Horning of Bucha Babe Kombucha, Kat Schwartz, owner of Kat Bucha, and Heidi Varasi, owner of Rock Bucha. And welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. So I have to ask you, why does it seem, because I hear more and more about kombucha now than before, it's been around forever, you know, some would say. So why do you think it is that right now in our society, and in particular in our community, why do you think that this beverage is booming, so to speak?
Well, I think we're seeing a decrease in soda sales. A lot more people are aware of, even in the last 20 to 30 years, there's a lot more awareness about what sugar does to our bodies and what a lot of processed foods do to our bodies. So kombucha is kind of like a very unprocessed food. It's generally low in sugar, and it's a really good alternative to, say, Coca-Cola or Pepsi or any kind of soda. And there's also some potential health benefits to it. And so there's been a huge rise in organic foods and unprocessed foods in general, and kombucha is just one of those things in that vein.
Any other ideas? Yeah, I would agree with that. I think as the knowledge of having a healthy gut and a healthy microbiome has increased, and people understand that if you have a healthy gut, you have an overall better health, that the rise of kombucha has started.
When we hear healthy microbiome, help me out, Hannah, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's something that, taking probiotics is something that's really great to make sure you have healthy bacteria. They can help you digest your food properly. Like they were saying, a lot of people are becoming more aware of what's important. You want to make sure you get enough fiber in your diet, and to help digest that fiber, you need those microbes. So it's really important that people, be conscious about what they're putting in their bodies, and I really agree with what people here have said, that that's why kombucha is becoming so popular, because they're kind of seeing that it has the natural B vitamins. So if you're also trying to, maybe eat less red meat, or if you're, being vegetarian and vegan, you may be concerned about the number of B vitamins you're consuming, and kombucha is a good source of that.
So to our brewers at the table, I have to ask you, what was it that first intrigued you and really pulled you in when it comes to kombucha, so much though that you launched your own businesses?
Sure. So for me personally, I started to eat more raw foods. I was trying to eat more live foods, and that comes with drinking more live foods as well. So I think I actually started out with drinking a beverage, or it's kind of in between, called kefir. It's a probiotic milk. This was mostly because of my own digestion issues that I was having, and I went to a specialist, and she really told me that really there's no reason why someone who is 20-something should have these issues. So I tried to basically fix my problem through what I was eating. I started to make my own kombucha. I had friends who were making it, and I had family members who were making it as well. And that kind of coupled with my own personal experience, or my own personal work experience, I was like, I think that this may be something that Rochester needs. I was seeing it through Instagram, through other social medias, that this is a viable business in other cities that are very like Rochester. And I thought it was just a matter of time that I would come here, and why not do it myself?
So for Kat, it was, in essence, about kind of solving some of your own health needs was one of the reasons that you got started. What about you, Jesse?
So I got started in 2014. Someone gave me one of the cultures. I just have always liked making different things and cooking and experimenting. So someone gave me one, and there's almost no information on it. I got a sheet printout, and then there wasn't much more. So I kind of was a little bit self-taught, and then there was a lot more on beer brewing forums and everything online about fermentation. So that's kind of how I just started experimenting. I mean, obviously, if you have the culture, then it's pretty straightforward. You just want to have everything.
Help people understand the culture.
So it's an acronym. SCOBY is the symbiotic colony or culture of bacteria and yeast. And people call it a blob, but it's just a cellulose kind of layer that's basically concentration of bacteria and yeast that sits on the top. And it's not too different than beer. I think beer is a lot grosser looking, honestly, especially wild yeast beers, but people tend to be a little bit skeeved out by the SCOBY itself. So that's what I was given, is a piece of that with some starter. And then from there, I just kind of experimented, and I take a lot of notes, and I just kind of started learning more about the process and how fermentation is affected by temperature and humidity, and I just kept track of everything. And then in 2016, I started selling it locally, and it just kind of went from there.
How long did it take for you to find just that right mixture? So you got to the point where you would say, it's time to sell this.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of companies, and certainly not in the area. I think Kombucha was the only other one, and they were just getting started. Bootleg Bucha in Buffalo was getting started around the same time. And then the really only big national brand was GT's Kombucha. And there was a couple flavors I liked, but there was a few other companies that I really didn't like so much. So since I had a culture, I was like, well, I can try making it my own, like myself. And I was working at Lori's Natural Foods, so I was really like, could see it coming. I was a buyer there at the time, so I could see the vein of people purchasing more in the market of organic and fermented foods, and that it would be coming. So that's how I got started.
And Heidi, what about you?
I have a similar story. You know, I was brewing at home, and I was enjoying that, and I actually ran out. We were out of town and kind of let it die off, and I purchased some local kombucha and thought, wow, like, you know, this is not as good as it could be. Now I think we have a lot more options as there's more local brewers, but back at that point we didn't, and I thought, you know what, people really should be enjoying drinking their kombucha. It's not something that needs to taste medicinal to have the health benefits that you get from it. So it was really that, and I thought I would like kind of dip my toe in and do it slowly, and I'm sure as Kat and Jesse can tell you, it's not a dip your toe in type of thing, it's a jump in with 2 feet. So it kind of took off from there.
So Hannah, let me ask you, one thing that's in common with all of our brewers is starting to make it from home. And they all started by the process in their homes. And I know that this is something that there must be some health things to be aware of when you are creating from home.
Yeah, it is great that they're starting from home, just because it's really important that we kind of think about food sustainability and really kind of knowing where your food comes from. But with that, you know, you always want to have food safety in mind, you know, making sure everything's clean when you're doing it. There are forms out there, like they said, you know, it's very rare that, you know, you get a bacteria that forms or like a mold. A lot of times, like Jesse was saying, people get weirded out by the SCOBY and think, oh, there's mold growing and my kombucha's not going to work. But it's actually really rare. So just looking into those things, and you know, if you do have, you know, a compromised immune system, it might not be something for you to do at home. Maybe purchasing it at a store might be better for you, so that you know that, you know, those cultures have stopped, you know, growing. But overall, you know, what they purchase at home is, you know, safe, and what they do at home. So it's really like overall generally safe. The CDC is not concerned. They say that it's generally safe for most populations.
I can remember I do actually remember the first time that I saw kombucha in the grocery store. I had absolutely no idea what it was. I pulled out my phone, I Googled the term, I didn't, you know, and I read a few articles, and it talked about, you know, there were some potential health benefits to something like this. And you mentioned GT's, and I know GT's was the very first kind that I had. Now Wegmans, you know, has this has kombucha on their shelves as well. And in terms of the health aspects, one thing I came across, there aren't enough, would you say this, in terms of studies, human studies on this product. Are we seeing enough information out there, or is this a matter of something that is still, we know there are health benefits, but there's more information that needs to be
there really needs to be more research, and I think some of the reasons why it's hard to do the research is there's different strands of each yeast, so that you may study one strand of yeast and that may produce some types of results, but then each kombucha is its own strand, so that kind of is why there's not a lot of research on the specific and nailing down the benefits. But also, you know, it depends on the individual. Like, you may, you know, need the probiotics whereas someone else doesn't. But there's some strong claims out there that, you know, it can cure all sorts of diseases. That research has not been proven. Just general health and, you know, a good source of vitamins and nutrients, and it's a really great substitute if you are hooked on those sugary beverages. It has that bite to it, and it's really actually very low in sugar in comparison.
Jesse, I know my colleague spoke with you in advance of the interview, and you mentioned the fact that it's important to be transparent because you're not saying that this is a cure-all. This is more of a public awareness thing. This is an option to drink something that's not so high in sugar, and while there are some benefits, it's not. Don't think that, as Hannah just said, everything will be taken care of when you drink something like this.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of claims made about kombucha, and I mean, GT's was one of them. He basically came out and was saying that it would cured his mother's cancer and all of these ailments, and there was really no research to back it up then or now. And I'm sure it could have assisted in it because it's a better step than drinking soda, for example. But there really hasn't been enough research done, and it does come down to how you're brewing and the fermentation process. I mean, that's where all of it comes from, is the actual fermentation. So it's important to have, I guess, a healthy culture and that you're fermenting properly. And so there's a lot of different factors, and when you have one study done on something, then that particular strain, as she was saying, could have contributed to a healthier gut, or I mean, there's some research for liver, like detoxification, and that could be due to the tea, maybe more than the kombucha, but it could have also just been that strain. And I think we need a lot more studies done on the various strains of yeast and bacteria to really be upfront with people. And I think the more awareness people have about it would be better. I think that would be awesome if we could get more people asking questions about it and more studies and journals being published on it, because you read one and it's one specific way of doing it versus most people might brew a different way, or if you're brewing it in your own home, it might be different than what was done in a lab. And so we need to compare those two things and see if it's they're helping no matter how you brew it, or if you're brewing in a specific way, and that's just not being done yet. And I think there is a lot of potential for health benefits. It needs to be pen to paper kind of thing.
Well, let me ask, has this been, there's I think a handful, maybe more, of kombucha brewers in Rochester right now. Is it a competitive business, or do you find that you all are kind of in this together and learning from each other, that type of a thing?
I think it's hard to know so far. I feel like it's still so new. I don't know. I might be just speaking for my own self here, but most of the people in Rochester, the three of us sitting at this table, plus there's another at least three that aren't at this table. We've been in business for maybe a year, Timbucha a little bit longer. So I think it's a little hard to know at this point. I think I don't feel a certain competitiveness towards certainly not the people at this table or my colleagues, but I do think that there is kind of this, the main competitor in the room that I see is the state, actually, of New York, because they don't really know what to do with us. We've been talking a lot about bacteria and yeast, and just for instance, when I went to a Safe Serve class, which is when you get certified to basically work in food, there was a whole portion on bacteria and yeast, and the person teaching the class said, "We're just not going to talk about it. Just don't have any pathological outbreaks in your facility." And it's well, that's exactly what I make as bacteria and yeast. Right. So the state doesn't really know what to do with us. It is a safe drink. One thing that I feel like we haven't touched on yet is that it is an antimicrobial drink. So basically, bad pathogens, bad bacteria are proven not to be able to live in kombucha. I have some colleagues in different states who have done extensive research on this and have submitted it to FDA and that kind of thing. But as far as competitors within Rochester, I do think that, I know Heidi and I have talked on the phone about what to do about the state if they're going to come in and close us down, or, or what their next regulation is going to be on us. Yes. Oh. I mean, I do.
I mean, not so much anymore. I think it was a few years ago when I started.
I think there is still some uncertainty. I think the state is unsure how to regulate it because they don't understand it.
Right.
And so, one thing that I know Kat and I both have, and I think Jesse you have as well, is there is the Kombucha Brewers International, which is our trade organization out of Los Angeles. And I have talked to them several times, and they're very supportive, and they are working on becoming what is called a process authority and kind of prove what kombucha brewers are doing. Right now, they're not for New York State. I'm not sure that they are for any state.
Right.
But they understand more than anyone else what is going on, how to make sure it's safe, like what are things that should not be done, what should be done. And so KBI is working toward that. In New York State, I think if they were able to, focus more on what KBI was doing rather than on kind of saying you can't do this, you can't do that, because they're unsure of what's going on.
Right. There's a lot of miscommunication.
All right. We have to close for now, but to our viewers, if you have not tried kombucha, do so. I personally enjoy the drink, but it's something to definitely try. And I want to thank all of my guests for joining me and weighing in on this conversation. And you can learn more about the kombucha brewers at the table. Just go to our website, wxxinews.org, and click on the Need to Know link.